I found out today the feast day has a new name. It's called the Sunday after Holy Trinity. I kind of like it, actually. You know, the very mystery that we celebrated last Sunday, God, who is a Trinity in one, gives rise. Out of that comes the mystery of God's sacramental presence here in the Eucharist. I don't think I'll ever use the title I read in one of my commentaries. It said, the feast formerly known as Corpus Christi. I was kept thinking it was like the musician formerly known as Prince. I'll still call it Corpus Christi, or Corpus et Sanguinis Christi, the body and blood of Christ. Because we celebrate literally the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ in this holy, most holy sacrament. But I like the gift of God, this gift of God comes from the very mystery of the Holy Trinity. So that other title is really cool, the Sunday after Trinity Sunday. I'm actually so grateful to be leading this sacrifice. It's just wonderful to be back on the Chalice of Salvation. And it gives me a chance to honor and celebrate these wonderful boys and girls from our school. It's just such a gift to our parish, what they present to us, St. Mary's and Lee. We've had a long history of that school. And we thank those who lead our music and our worship today, led by the amazing direction of Mary Teresa Valeri, so thank you. And we celebrate second grade. Second graders, many of them made their first communion just a few weeks ago. So for some of them, it's like their fourth or maybe fifth communion. It's like old hat for them now. But this is a big year for second grade. And of course, yesterday we had the dioramas show up in school, and that was really cool. I love coming to visit our school every day. I try to see something new. And yesterday was dioramas, so it was like leopards and clownfish and tigers and bunnies and alligators and mountain lions. They were so amazing. So great job there. And the third thing I get to do, because we're leading the celebration, is remember one of our dearly departed parishioners, Richard Lindsay. Richard was a graduate of our school, and he was a wonderful husband and father. He read at Mass. He served in what we call the Arimathean ministry, our service to funerals. He volunteered at the rectory and was just a constant presence at events both at our school and our parish. And he made such a huge difference in our local media. He was on the radio station, it was a local radio station. He was a staff member on the Berkshire Eagle. And so when Catholic Communications said, can we do a Mass, a remembrance for him, I had to jump at the chance. So thank you, Mark DuPont and the whole staff here down at the diocese for giving us this opportunity, for remembering Richard and lifting him up. So we have lots of things to celebrate today. And that's a lot of stuff. And as a simple parish priest, I'm always mindful of the ways our parish is strengthened and enlivened by the people and the ministries that make up our parish. We are better because we have a school and such amazing youths. We are better because we have good and holy parishioners. We are way better together. We are better as God's family, as God's body, as God's church. And I think this feast reminds us of that. You know, in the Catechism of the Church, we find a whole section devoted to the Eucharist, and it begins with a reflection on Eucharist as source and summit of ecclesial life. If you have a chance, grab a catechism and check it out. It's just so rich in theology. Let me just read one line, 2 sentences from that catechism. The other sacraments, indeed all ecclesial ministries and works of the apostolate, are bound up with the Eucharist and are oriented toward it. For in the blessed Eucharist is contained the whole of spiritual good of the church, namely Christ himself, our Pasch. I could spend a whole hour just unpacking that. It's such profound theology. But I think it's very practical in looking at what we celebrate today. I mean, just look around, these awesome boys and girls. And Jesus loves you so much. And he left the church where we can be together a family. And commanded that church to teach all nations. And this is something we strive for in our ministry, indeed our apostolate of running St. Mary's School. He calls us to grow in his grace and his love. If you think about it, Jesus created each of you. He watches over you, and you're with families and guardian angels and a church and a school and so many others. He never abandons you. Or I think of Richard. He indeed was one of the most faithful parishioners that I know. His goodness, his blessings, the way that he would bring that, well, it came from the source of all blessing, which is God himself. You see, before we loved God, God loved us. And he sent his Son to be with us, to teach us and to save us, and to fill us with his grace and his blessing. And that continues today in his Holy Eucharist. This amazing gift that we will soon celebrate, what looks like a little piece of bread or a cup of wine, in God's grace, is made into his very body, blood, soul, and divinity. It's the heart and the summit of our church's life. And from it comes grace upon grace. Graces we can see directly when we receive or participate in Mass, but graces we may not see, and yet are directly coming from this great gift as Christ continues to pour out mercy and love. The Eucharist is a source. It comes from Jesus' grace. But the Eucharist is also the summit. It's where we're directed toward in our journey. Our scriptures proclaim Jesus is the high priest, the mediator of a new covenant, the source of eternal redemption and cleansing and sanctification. When time came for him to embrace the cross, he gathered his disciples at the Last Supper and gave them his body and his blood of the new covenant. Not a symbol, not a nice thought, not a happy reminder. It's his very body and blood given to them, so that when they gathered together for years and years later, and then their descendants gather, and now we gather, he is eternally, concretely, sacramentally, truly, tangibly with us. From him comes the stuff we need to live the life of faith, hope, and love that he always invites us to. And from him comes the grace we need to go towards him as we direct our efforts, our praise, and our hopes. So I look out, I see these awesome boys and girls. And those who are watching from home, maybe look around with those you're sitting with, or maybe the pictures by your sofa or your bedside, pictures of your families who you love so much. Each is a precious and beloved gift of God. Jesus came to die and to rise for them. And he remains with us, body, blood, soul, and divinity, in this precious Mass that we celebrate, and in the tabernacles here and across the world. From him pours grace upon grace, and to him we journey in hope and in love. May God bless us and keep us and lead us ever in his love.